That's really good.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our special council meeting. It's Tuesday, April the 28th. It's 4 p.m. And we'll call this meeting to order. Item number 2 is the adoption of the agenda. It's moved by Councillor Card, seconded by Councillor Crapper, that the agenda of the special council budget meeting held on April 28th, 2026 be adopted as presented. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Item number 3 is any declarations or conflict or pecuniary interest today. Seeing none, we're going to go into a quick closed session for the public. And then when we come out of that session, we will be getting into the budget discussion for the day. But we're going to go into closed for a short meeting. So it's moved by Councillor Crapper, seconded by Councillor Card, that the council proceed into closed session as permitted under the Municipal Act to consider personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal employees. All in favor? And that's carried. Can I get someone to tag the door for it? I'm gonna do the motion that we're gonna. Welcome back. We've, council met in closed session and we have a motion to report out. It's moved by Councilor Carney, seconded by Councilor Aragona. The council met in closed session to discuss matters pertaining to personal matters of an individual, including municipal employees, and council will now consider a resolution in open session. I'll just get agreement on that, that's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councilor Aragona, seconded by Councilor Carney. The council approved the adjustments to the 2026 salary grid as discussed in the April 28th, 2026 closed meeting. Since that was a closed meeting, there's not much I can say about it, but for the public listening, everybody understands the need for pay equity and to make sure that there are systems and processes in place so that staff are being paid according to the tasks they perform. So that's what that discussion was about. Being said, I'll just call this question. All in favor? Carried. Alrighty, so now we're gonna move to the budget. And we are doing all budgets tonight, so I'm just gonna turn it over to you, Madam CAO. And we'll let you walk us through the slides.
So thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I'm just waiting for Tammy to come on here, but I'm gonna present the overview, high-level overview that was attached to the agenda, and obviously council has more detail if you have any more questions. I think it makes more sense if you have a question on the slide, we'll stop and ask at that point in time,
Okay,
rather
fair.
than having to remember all of them, so.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get started here, so. Okay, so municipal taxation, obviously what makes up property taxes are the assessed value, and we get that from MPAC, times municipal rates, education rates, and county rates. And so over 2025, the village experienced growth of about 5.10%, which amounts to $71,000.
Just pop in here, something I'd like to see in the future. And maybe understand better, has to do with, it's one thing to have growth. My first question to do with this actual number is that from new growth in the past in 2025? Or is that all growth this term, or like a what time frame is that growth?
2025,
Okay.
yeah.
Along with growth comes added expenses, and I'd like to suggest that we ask staff at some point to develop a report that helps us and future councils understand the cost benefits of growth, because it's not just new money, there are new responsibilities and costs that come along with it, and it would be really helpful for council to understand what that actually looks like. So in fact, like what's the net benefit? And maybe zero, or maybe it's a loss leader, who knows, but all I know is as we take on responsibility for new developments in this town. And we see the size of the park, which is wonderful, but it's gonna take, even insurance, I assume, goes up. And as we've seen in the budget line, insurance isn't cheap. So is that something we could consider having staff develop for us for reflection down the road, not as part of this budget deliberation, but
Not as part of this budget.
not as part of, well, it's not gonna happen in time. It's not gonna influence my vote on the budget we're being presented with, but I think when I hear about 71,000 new dollars, I'd also like to know about added costs that would subtract from that number.
So is that possible to, through you and to Mr. Evans, something that you can pull together?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, that was one of your questions that I think
Yeah.
you sent in earlier. And as I understand it from Tammy, she's online now, you can't see her. But this requires a fulsome analysis, that requires modeling as well. So it's a little bit more in-depth than I think staff can do, but, certainly it's something we can be directed to look at.
Okay, so it's just not looking at numbers, there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll keep it in mind,
Mhm.
but I don't wanna drag down the evening talking
Yeah,
about it.
I just, if we're gonna stop at slides,
but
unfortunately, some of my questions.
Let's keep it on budget.
Yeah.
On budget. Go ahead.
Through your worship, can we assume that the the $71,000.
Can you talk this way so we can?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can we assume that the $71,000, we haven't assessed any, we haven't taken ownership of anything, involving that $71,000 to incur an expense? Anything we're doing, let's say in the subdivision, we're being paid for it, are we not, at this point in time? So the $71,000 for the 26 budget as it
It's
stands,
additional property tax.
it's just additional,
Property taxes, yeah,
no
great
incurred
news.
expenses.
No, it's great news for us.
Okay, so moving on, right, was there any more questions, or was that it?
And not, sorry, Councillor Crapper, not to take away from your question,
Yeah.
like maybe saying it's
I
great
hear
news
you.
for us.
Yeah.
I didn't mean that, just when you get this extra financial support through property taxes, through growth as opposed to anything else, it just helps on the bottom line. I'm not
Yeah.
ignoring your question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, council frequently has this question, and they always ask, what is 1% levy increase, what's the result of that? And that is approximately $13,944 to property taxes.
So 14 grand, we could round it off to.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Okay, so in this budget as presented, we're looking at a 6.85% tax rate increase. And for the average household, which I sent a little bit more data earlier to council today, which is about $237,000 is the average household. That amounts to approximately $23.47 per month for 2026. And this is possible by and large, because it's such a larger increase to the budget, 26 over 25 of capital projects. It's possible to keep it this low due to growth.
So for anybody watching out there, this is the budget that we're debating tonight. We would always ask at the end of the day, what does this budget represent as far as the tax rate? Nothing's been agreed to yet.
Quick comment on that one, I mean, the $237,000 as the average home value seems incredible to me.
It is what it is.
Yet, and so, but it's something that is going to change big time over the next 5 years, I suspect. Not that that necessarily has it has the impact we choose it to have on,
You know, it hasn't changed much over the last 12 years.
they haven't done
Crazy.
an impact assessment in.
It just hasn't changed that much, but
I know, but if it is an actual thing, that is the average house value, and there are 0 houses for sale at $237,000.
It's not an actual house value though. It's not market value, it's not anywhere close to market value. Thankfully, we never start using market value. Impact's always had a different way of, a different formula for, basically trim and everything. My understanding is that impact doesn't care whether you got gold trim or whatever, it's the square feet, the size that, and the size of the lot, so.
okay. Go ahead.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Okay, so some of the key changes to the 2026 budget are a 2.2% increase for cost of living. And those are applied to budgets where applicable. And so those apply to things like contracts and agreements. For instance, the E360 contract is built in and it goes up by cost of living each year. It applies to council directives such as council remuneration, salaries, wages, that sort of thing. Where it doesn't apply is things like insurance. We don't have the control. We can't just inflate it by 2.2. We have to pay it. It doesn't apply to things like OPP. They give us that formula, and RBCA levies, things like that. There is a proposal to merge 2 seasonal recreation positions into 1 full-time position to cover the shoulder seasons and to reduce current overtime. Now, that would be a service delivery level increase because we would have that body there, where right now we don't have that person there to help with some of the newly implemented infrastructure such as Serenity Garden and new programming at the arena, and still need the staff at the harbor. Another key change is the summer student, and that means just coverage for the front counter. That would also reduce overtime. And that comes in at approximately $10,000. So long-term debt overall, the debt repayment went down by about 12,000 due to loan maturities, and these are 2 examples, and reduced interest rates. And fleets fleet repairs and maintenance is increasing by 14,000, and that's largely due to the 2 new trucks, if I'm not mistaken, Peter. Just new fleet being added to our roster.
Largely for the aging fleet, but
Aging, okay.
partially the new
Okay.
versions.
And so, capital expenditure increase of 2.4 million, of which 2 million is grant funded, and that's the GHG arena project. And this leaves about 232,000 supported by long-term debt. And supplementals were lower than anticipated in 2025, but are expected to recover in 2026.
Okay, so this is kind of high level. We're gonna go line by line, so let's hold our questions till we get to line by line. That's all right. Is that all right with everybody?
Yeah, I had one person did ask you, I know you answered me, but it was what supplementals were, so maybe you could just clarify that for the audience.
Yeah. Tammy, did you wanna maybe clarify what supplementals are?
Sure, thank you. Through you, Chair. Supplementals actually combined. Supplementals are additions to properties, and omits. This also includes omits, which are omissions from the tax roll. So those would be, your properties that are coming on, but they would have had perhaps a building permit, but they didn't get assessed until MPAC gets there. And I just wanted to mention, because there was a question about the assessment rates. The last time they were reassessed was 2016. So that's why you have a very low amount. So I just thought I'd push that in as well.
Thanks, Tammy.
Okay, so I've just done a high level breakdown of revenues versus expenditures. You'll see the pie chart here. I'm not gonna read all the numbers, but if council has any questions on this one, we can certainly field those questions then on revenue. None? Okay.
Between the 2 slides, revenue and expenses, I noticed, this might be too nitty-gritty at the moment, but we didn't get to the next slide, but, it's regarding recreation. I noticed we're bringing in less revenue. Sorry, we have higher expenses than we have revenue. There's a $45,000 deficit there. So I'm just wondering if we can get some clarity as to why, because that's something that is concerning. Is it because our rates are too low, or is it because we're granting too many things? I'd like to get some clarity on that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, there's about $46,000, I think, so.
Yeah, so through you, Madam Mayor. So that's largely attributed to maintenance of the arena. And Tammy, I'm not sure if you want to weigh in on this, but like revenues versus expenses at the arena
Recreation.
or recreation, sorry.
Yes, through you, Mayor. So it is actually very rare for recreation to be fully funded. You would want to potentially do a fee study, which I don't think has been done for quite some time. But it's not actually unusual that it's not fully funded. Certainly a fee study may be in line, but I think it's been quite some time since the village has undertaken one. So and you would really want to do that based on full cost, which includes capital amortization.
And that's on the books to happen next year, right? A fee study of this year, can't remember.
Next year.
Next year, all
2027.
right. Thanks, Tammy. So,
Okay.
very good.
Yep.
Barry?
Just a comment, in regards to Councilor Aragona's, question there. I was going back through old budgets, and my 3rd year in council, 3rd budget, we're $86,000 in the hole on the arena, so we're definitely seeing an improvement there.
All right.
Okay, so this slide I'll hand over to Peter if you want to explain the chart and the implication of the tax rate.
Do you mind coming up, Peter? They're gonna get whiplash. Kim can't move because she doesn't have someone run the machine in her absence. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so I think it's working towards a goal just to kind of get information in the council's hands, especially with where the revenue from taxation is coming from and what the actual rates are funding. So specifically in the facilities budgets, we are looking at a facility by facility cost versus revenue. Now, of course, these are services provided by the municipality to the public, so it's not necessarily the goal that they would ever be revenue neutral. But I think it's important to see where the biggest impact is, and especially if we're looking at facilities like, yes, 10% of the taxes go to support the utilities at the arena. So it's not a surprise, a big facility like that uses a large number of utilities. So it's a good place to target future programs and things like that, where we can actually get some return. And I think council on the other side of that coin is a great example of where council has actively been working through that GHG reduction. So we're not just targeting facilities to reduce utilities without a plan and without making those impacts to where it actually affects. Whereas some of our other facilities are a little bit smaller and therefore big capital investments to reduce utilities, there isn't that same return. Additionally, we kind of want to start pointing out where we have discretionary and non-discretionary funding. So things like insurance, property tax, utilities, and telecom, where council can't make a lot of decisions that are going to significantly impact this year for policy purposes. We can't make a lot of changes that are going to affect that. So we kind of want to show both council and the public where we aren't going to have a big effect. So if we want to affect that, it's kind of a multi-year program. Whereas the discretionary funds, that is where council can make active decisions this year. Staff will still provide recommendations and provide feedback. Some of those things do technically fit in discretionary, but are relatively inadvisable. So we basically break that down into a couple of small sections: repairs and maintenance, which is important, as over the years we've worked to increase that budget line item so that we get closer to our 2% of the total replacement value. But then we can see, like, we're spending a pretty small amount in materials and small equipment and things like that. So that's basically the goals of the next few slides that Public Works look after, is to try to get some information out in a different format.
That's interesting. I've never seen numbers broken down that way. Question on this? That's
Question for Peter, through your worship. There's no real heading there, but it's a facilities budget, but it is maintenance oriented, is these numbers?
And so, through your worship, so it's either the coding system that are specific to the facility themselves. So we don't have, so in the recreation area, we of course don't have the revenue from fees that are charged. This would be just generated from the facility itself. It is based on future staff time, utilities, repairs and maintenance, just especially the buildings, the structures that the municipality owns.
Could you just pick one of those items and explain it in depth?
Sure. Yeah, so if we were to look, for example, at the facility for the library, so we don't generate a revenue from the library as a municipality. We invest about $12,460 into that facility, planned for 2026. And so the revenue, the $12,460, is a net impact to the levy, which represents about 0.77% of the levy that comes into the village. So your taxes, for every $100 you spend, 77 cents goes to the library itself, supporting that facility, just the building itself.
good.
Thank you.
I think Amy, through you, Madam Mayor, to Peter, just can you speak to what the very top line facilities general, it's 3.73% of the net levy, just, is it, everything else is broken down, you can see harbor, you can see library, post office, I was just wondering what general, what falls under that?
Absolutely, so it's a bit of a combined budget still. We're breaking out away from having just one general facilities repairs and maintenance budget, but there's still some things that hang in and are combined. There's a number of different nuanced ones, mostly smaller ones that aggregate into one larger one. The town hall is probably a good example of ones that are so hard to extricate from each other because it does a bunch of different functions, whether from the town hall, the administration, water, wastewater, and then the back garage, which has storage for public works and rec and the sand shed out back. So those are still working on extricating them out. I think ideally we would see that be reduced to zero and each one of those items be properly accounted for, but a target for sure.
Okay, thanks, Peter.
Good question.
Public Works.
So this one here, so again, I think it's really important, even though Public Works is a good example of, we're kind of not trying to throw stones. We know that Public Works is a municipally provided service. This is not a revenue generating service. Like the recreation question where we're looking at hopefully one day balancing should that occur as our consultant indicated, that's not a super common thing here. It's definitely not gonna be a common thing or maybe a realistic possibility for Public Works. That's of course a taxation driven service. However, I think it's important, very important to recognize that it is a significant portion of everyone's taxes. So you can see where that goes. 29% is a relatively large number. If you look at your tax bill, 29% is going to maintain roads and sidewalks and stormwater infrastructure as it stands right now. So those top charts are just meant to kind of do a quick overview of budget year over year and then that impact to the taxation. So for us, for highlights, we did do some allocation that results in shifting salaries and around Public Works, which resulted in a change on that budget. Especially it seems to like impact that and make the percentages a little higher than normally. That'd be better explained. I have to refer that over to the consultant. We were able to significantly increase the repair funding, so that pothole prevention program ended up being a direct infusion into the roadway repairs and maintenance budget. So the roadway repairs and maintenance budget looked like it went up 45-ish%, but that 45% isn't covered by taxation, it's covered by the pothole repairs and maintenance grant. So again, part of that large increase in the year-over-year budget is the grant funding to the operations side, which is unlike capital where it's very clear to the outside and shows the multiple revenue streams. When that grant is into operations, I think it can muddy the water, especially when we're looking at smaller budgets. $38,000 for the village of Westport is much bigger impact percentage wise than in other locations. I think we mentioned earlier fleet expenses. I've got this from me. Fleet expenses, probably the biggest impact on the fleet is definitely our aging fleet. Every year they get older and it's still, some of the equipment still feels new for me, and looking at the years tick on and the equipment costs rise as everything rises, but also just more frequent maintenance. We had a variance with the 2020 salary budget. A lot of that was based on 2024. Consultant will be better able to explain that. We still have the efficiency reserve transfer from the funding provided the province a number of years ago, where out of the operating $21,000 is meant to fund or refund that program. Our capital transfer from the operating budget in Public Works to the capital side is $25,000. Sorry, $64,000, but we have a direct reserve transfer that stays in at $25,000. Again, discretionary and non-discretionary funding thrown at the bottom, where we have our non-discretionary, where salaries, programs, supplies, and interest in long-term debt. These are based on previous bylaws and agreements. Whereas discretionary, where we're looking at asset repairs, fleet expenses, professional development, contracted services. Doesn't mean they're any less important, certainly from a staff perspective, but where we would likely gain the most traction in discussions this evening.
Go ahead, Councillor Crapper, then Councillor Carr.
So the biggest jump in the Public Works detailed budget is in the salary line, or the second biggest jump. And there's a comment up here about salary reallocation results in shifting costs of Public Works. Is that why I'm seeing the large, I don't know who I should be asking this question to. Peter, is that why I'm seeing such a large jump in the salary allocation for Public Works? Can you explain what's constituting the 52% jump?
So I would have to defer that as well to the consultant, because we didn't make any big operational changes from 24 to 25 or 25 to 26. So I'd have to defer.
And could you just tell us what page you're
Yeah,
already on?
it's in our binders, page 13.
13. Everybody look at the same spot.
Under the bonus.
So it's line 1000 on that page,
Yeah.
right? Okay, Tammy, do you know where we are?
Yep, I
Okay.
can assist here. So the 2025 actuals involved about $60,000 in overtime that wasn't originally planned for. The plan was about 22,000. I think Peter can talk to that a little bit more. As well as the previous budgets had not fully expensed the benefits properly. So that was a legacy issue that we didn't realize until we looked at this year's budget. So there's two pieces there of that. So even though it looks like it's actually not, I don't know if the 2025 actuals were provided to council, but the actuals in 2025, including overtime, was actually 222,000.
Yeah, we got that.
And so you'll see that the budget's in line with that. So I know that likely the overtime, maybe Peter can talk to on that piece. But I do know that partly it is benefits as well. Your benefit rates have gone up, but they are also not fully accounted for in previous years.
The 25 budget built on accurate 2024 data.
I would say no.
Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind.
That's part of the reason.
That's part of it. Thank you, Tammy. Did you want to talk about overtime though, Peter?
Yes.
That's out there. Thanks, Megan.
I maybe only attempt to clarify, and it would just be the fact that the amount was over in budget, but the year-over-year change in level of service was the same. So previous budget, some of them, there was some tracking with what was billed back and kind of covered by outside third parties. But I think that's the main thing. We didn't change the level of service. We didn't necessarily have $60,000 more overtime in one specific year than the other. It's just what was covered and billed back is kind of the best of my understanding, but hopefully that clears a little bit. And I think the information from previous years certainly had a big impact on it.
Okay. All right.
Well, yeah, no, I didn't understand that at all, actually, but what I'm hearing, I think, is that there wasn't a significant jump in the number of hours of overtime required by staff in 2025.
That's my understanding of it. I think it was based on budget, the large difference, but not a significant difference. Both the winter for into 2025 and into 2026. We went well into April these last 2 years in a row for winter.
Yeah.
I think most folks are trying to remember the salt shortages and the amount of overtime in this whole area was big.
Yeah.
But we had similar expenditures in 2025. And I think that was probably the biggest gap, is picking that up and transferring that over into 2026.
So if I can follow up, I think then that what I'm hearing is that this is part of, when we did our 2024 audit and what we're doing in 2025 soon. What we're all learning is that we are catching up from some administrative glitches that show themselves in the finances. That's a big one. But if we're on top, if what we're saying is this is one of those historical deficit pieces in a sense, I don't know if I'm using that term accurately, but it's a piece of that and we're catching up on it. It shows itself in our financials this year. It isn't about, because a casual observer like me would look at this and go, oh, we're spending 52% more money on people. That is not the case.
No, we understand that when we built the 25 budget, we were relying on the 24
Yeah.
numbers. And then with the expertise that we've had working with us the last year, we found that there were some real discrepancies in the 24 numbers.
Mhm.
So we see Tammy nodding her head there. We have to kind of live with this understanding that I guess the proper word is a baseline, and everybody is satisfied that what we're building is a proper baseline for 25.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Have I got that right, Tammy? 25 is solid, to the best of our knowledge.
I would say 25 was unfortunately built a little bit on 24 because
26.
and 26 is solid. And
Yes.
you're very correct, Mayor, a lot of the accruals that should have been done in 24,
Yeah.
as you know, were not done until late 25.
Right, just so moving forward, I misspoke.
Yes.
We
thank
know
you.
that we are, yeah, and I take responsibility for that. 26, we're establishing the baseline. We know that there's still some challenges. with the budget 25 was built on using 24 numbers.
Yes.
Okay, good for everybody, people know, but
Yeah.
moving forward, we know that we have that as a sort of a presumption that we're working with. Go ahead, Joe.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Public Works. Peter, so are we underestimating the proposed budget for 2026, given that the year-to-date on 2025 was higher?
Go ahead.
I'd have to defer to the consultant, so most of that was based on their analysis.
Yeah, so fine.
Through you, Mayor. So worked with Peter on this to look at the overtime in particular we looked at, but also ensured that the staff were aligned in the grid. So even year to date, we did look in terms of overtime that had already been compared to last year, and you are actually down from between 2025 and 2026. So there was some rationalization there done on the salaries, but I think they're pretty good.
Okay, Peter, go ahead.
Those two together just kind of triggered something too, and it's always unfortunate when this kind of comes up, when we see large increases, when we'd like to talk something that is a little bit of a good news story for us. The changes in the shifts for Public Works looked like year over year with similar winters actually ended up with a notable reduction in overtime through the first 4 months of 2026. So we had similar winters where we had lots of snow, lots of events, but having longer coverage periods for Public Works operators actually was a big benefit for us,
Okay.
where we shifted hours. So we didn't add any hours or like overall staff hours, but we shifted so that we had longer coverage on some of the days of the week.
Right, and Tammy's nodding her head yes to that as well, so bodes well. But what the question was from Casa Aragona, the 220, you two have put your heads together and you're satisfied that's an accurate amount for the budget. Okay. Anything else on that, Councillor Carr?
Just a question, refer back a couple of slides for my own information. When we get a grant, let's take the Spring State grant, 100,000, and you don't use it right now, where does that get parked? In reserves and then pulled back out again? Because it's hard to track a line item through the year when you see into reserves, out of reserves, into reserves, out of reserves. It's but that is the case, and so it doesn't stay in a line item and get consumed there. It comes out of reserves as it's spent.
Yeah, and a couple of things on that. So yes, but that's the ideal world, and we know we're still making up the last couple of years, it wasn't ideal. But Tammy would be able to go into what the reserve, let's just say it's what's left over is $50,000. She'd be able to tell exactly what it's for and when it's coming out on and in behind her numbers. We wouldn't likely see that report because all her numbers would have data in behind to explain the ins and the outs.
Yeah.
So that's the way it's supposed to work. We know that we're catching up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay?
Good.
We okay? All right, anything else on the Public Works budget page? Oh, no, sorry, we're back over here. That was where we got our attention drawn to.
So I'm gonna, Council Welch, I'm just gonna skip the recreation slide and we'll come back to that, and I'm gonna let Peter do the waste management one first. Just one slide ahead.
So we're at waste management? Is that where you're going?
Yes.
You're doing a great job. I know you got like 18 things going at the same time there. You're doing well. Okay, waste management budget we're at, Peter?
So this is another example that maybe better fits with the idea that we want to be focused on a system that supports itself. The principle of waste management is certainly that this should self-fund. This is the first year that we have transitioned to full producer responsibility, where the province through their organizations have hired contractors and looking after all of their recycling. Now, we knew that there would be a little bit of impact more for us. Some municipalities would have seen operational savings, but in our case, that funding actually paid for a portion of the truck showing up because we were able to do everything on one day. So while we were able to remove the funding of the disposal of the recycling program, recycled products, the village taxation rates then have to fund the remainder of the kind of truck showing up. So we did see a bit of an increase. Part of that is that the waste management is still subsidized by taxation. So when we throw out those bags of garbage or we put our tags down, that isn't covering the cost. For us as staff, I know we find that important because it means that if someone, person is putting out 2 bags and the neighbor is putting out 1, the one that puts out 1 ends up actually subsidizing the one that puts out 2, just based on those averages. It's not abnormal, like recreation, that there's not some subsidization from taxation for waste management, but I think it's important to notice that for us. We are seeing some some additions with the new housing, so that's more tags and more sold. And then I don't know if I want to move forward, but the last thing basically for us is that we're still underutilizing the waste cart program. We haven't been really pushing it as hard as we possibly could, but we do know that would help work towards cost recovery while offering, I think, a service to the folks that use that and just make it easier to put out their waste and take advantage of that.
So just the amount that we got from Blue Box prior to full producer is what kept our 2025 year to date at 43.8. So that got factored into this line as well, the grant that we got?
That's correct.
Okay, so I just want everybody to kind of understand, and which covered most of the cost of our recyclables. And when they went to full and your point was, they did it all in one truck. So the grant that was covering recyclables also offset some of the cost of the truck. Now there's one truck. The recycles are over here. We don't factor them into our budget anymore, but we have to pay the full price of the truck coming for the waste removal.
That's correct.
That's why it's 83 and not 40, whatever.
And we just saw like a 7% reduction, whereas we may have been 30 or 35%.
Yeah, just for people to follow along and the public who's following along wondering what that is, because it was a little hard to hear you. Just so that they understand that we knew that when we went full producer in a place like us, where we were getting the benefit of one truck picking up both prior to full producer, that we would go up for our cost. Okay, questions, Councilor Crapper?
The CART program was initially presented to us as a pilot. And if I recall correctly, our goal was to see if it was worth going full hog in there and reducing or eliminating the loss leader bag and tag program. Why it's not called a pilot anymore, and I don't see many of them out there. I don't even know how people go about getting one. Where are we at with that, and should we be moving faster and more concertedly in the direction of shifting to carts?
So there's a study coming. The fees and fine study is coming.
Oh, okay.
And that would be part of the assessment in it. Couple of months ago, I flew to St. John's, Newfoundland. And they had heavy snow all winter. And I got into the airport around midnight and I rented a car, and by the time I made it to my hotel, it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. And there's the snowbanks were Westport ×5 at the end of the narrow driveways. And at the end of every driveway was a cart. And so, you know, they went full bore. So there's lots of places around to check. But the study, it's part of the fees and fines schedule study.
That's a lot, but the rate study is, this is
Right,
right.
but I knew I was calling it the wrong thing.
No, this is right in line with that, because it really, we're flagging one tiny component of that.
Yeah.
And this is certainly a big thing. It has been certainly successful enough to support itself. I do agree that we're kind of out of a pilot program. I certainly wouldn't recommend council cancel it.
No.
And I'm hoping, we're able to get some addition. I do believe that it's gonna be a combination of a bit of a snowball effect. Once you see more of the bins out, I think you will. It is an increase in cost. If you put out 1 bag per week, you will see it would be a slightly more per month bill, which is something where we're seeing how the convenience factor takes in. If you put out more than 2 bags, or 2 bags or more per month, you should be reaching out to us and getting involved in that. Because it does bring it closer to actually covering those costs. But
Oh, it's the best thing since sliced bread.
Can I just add to that story really quick? To your point of not publicizing this to the extent that we should. Internally, we were just bringing billing in-house, and there were some discrepancies with trying to account for that on the monthly bill. So that's why we didn't advertise it widely, as we did have a plan to do that,
Yeah.
but that's why that communication ceased at the time, so just.
And that's resolved now.
Yeah.
Joe,
You, Madam Mayor, to Peter, but this cart program right now is not costing us anything, right? I mean, we're not buying the bins in advance until somebody signs up. There's no actual output by the village.
So we purchased 50 bins for the bio program 2 years ago.
Okay.
So we have the stock, so there is no additional cost. We've already put that in, to it. They're, available for those that might need it, but we're not proposing any cost this year to support this program at all. None.
so I guess you can sit down for a moment or two, right? We go to rec and then come back to capital.
Yes,
Mr. Chisholm.
so through you, Madam Mayor, we've already talked a little bit about the rate study that needs to be undertaken, that's with respect to Councilor Aragon's question at the outset of the numbers related to recreation. But I defer to Chris to talk about some of the high level changes in this department.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, what you're seeing here on this slide is a little light on numbers compared to Peter's last few slides here. Some of the numbers that I can share with you about, 2 years ago, we were up at the rink about 90 ice times. This year, we're up another 200 ice times. So over the last 3 years, we're almost up 300 ice times from where we were before.
Well,
I
nice.
think there's a number of reasons for that. One of them is sort of finally the post-COVID back to normalcy with user groups and probably sports of all kinds. But also there are communities around that are really struggling for ice time for, Smith Falls girls minor hockey, some groups out of Kingston. So what that's done for us is filled all the holes that we had in for example, our Saturday and Sundays. Whereas we might have had like 2 or 3 or 4, suddenly now we have complete full days. So that's been phenomenal for us at the rink. Anecdotally, the former manager of the rink looked at our schedule this year and said he hasn't seen a schedule that busy since like the 1990s. So that's a very positive story, I would say. It's a great facility and it's nice to see it being even, more and more used as we go on here. As you saw in the harbor report at the end of the season, we were up from the previous year there as well. I will say that's a little bit due to free lockage. Our boat numbers spiked because of free lockage and a lot of day boaters were driving those numbers. So we didn't see the same number of overnight boaters. So it'll be very, very interesting to see what we're up against this year with everything from the cost of marine fuel to, just the situation in the world in general to the LaSalle Causeway. So, yeah, we'll be ready to go May long weekend and we'll see what happens. The boat numbers were up a little bit, which was encouraging. They had a bit of a bounce back year. And I know they want to sit down and chat with us about their future plans and maybe ways we could better get the word out about a little bit of this product as well. So, expanding programming too. My mandate was given to me when I started about trying to use our facilities more often for more things. So we're really trying to drive, especially like when the ice is out in the arena, trying to drive programming there. So we're gonna do movies in the rink again. Pickleball is up and running. We have a number of different arena floor activities this year, from teen dance, potentially an adult dance. We're gonna try, we're doing it right now. We're doing rec programming for the homeschool group, which have come in and do things from scooters to floor hockey to learning how to ride a bicycle on the rink floor. So we're really trying to, come up with different ideas for different groups, different ages, and really try to see, no idea is a bad idea right now. We're really trying to generate that activity. I think I would pay special attention to Friends of the Arena and the renovations that have gone on in the canteen area upstairs. Aesthetically, it's made it a lot more beautiful, but also it's made it a more inviting space for people to want to rent. In fact, right now, tonight at 6 o'clock, belly dancing is happening there. Like, these are things that we wouldn't probably have rented before, but when people are seeing our spaces and how they've improved and how much better they look, thanks to the efforts of many different people, I think our facility as a whole becomes a more enviable or enjoyable place to want to spend some time in. So that's another good news story. That being said too, there's a number of community groups that continue to receive community grant funding. They've added life to our facilities and our building as well. Specifically at the arena, the WSL group went through numerous programs and events all winter long, which gave life to an upstairs area that traditionally remained kind of in the dark most weekdays. So, yeah, council, your money is being well used by all those unit groups, I can say with authority. And so, yeah, those are some of the highlights from the recreation budget. As I said before, I apologize that some of the numbers maybe aren't as in great detail there, but perhaps between myself and the CAO and Tammy, we could answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Chris. Councilor Crampton.
The first I'll comment that, I remember sitting here and asking the rec manager to work hard towards increasing revenues out of our recreation facilities, and I think it's obvious that you've succeeded in doing that and closed the gap between expenses and revenue, so well done. Specifically to the several part-time to one FTE, is there an added cost to that shift, or is it a break-even proposition that we end up with more efficiency because of, through you, Madam Mayor?
Yep, thank you through you, Madam Mayor. So, as discussed in some of the key changes, this is the two seasonal positions that we'd be merging into one full-time. So the only real expense, is, that shift to full-time and therefore the benefits, which is about $5,000 taken into account in the recreation salaries and wages budget line item. So that's the only real expense, where the benefit far outweighs that, I find, with other infrastructure projects like keeping the harbor, island aesthetically pleasing, Serenity Garden, things like that.
No, that's great, and I think also benefits mean that we get employees who want to stay with us.
Retention, yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah, good question. Anything else for Mr. Chismore? Easy. Don't go far. There may be more.
Thank you.
All right, so that finishes us and brings us to capital. This is probably a good time to take a stretch break, if that's okay with everybody. So for the public, we're just gonna adjourn for a 10-minute-ish break. And then we will come back on and we will start with the capital budget. Tammy, thanks. Kim will send you a quick text when we're ready to come back on. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thank you very much to the public and to Tammy. We've had our break. We will continue on with our slide presentation, soon getting into the line by line, but we're still sort of doing the overview. And we're on page 17 of the slide deck with 2026 capital budget pre-approved. But
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry?
Do you want me to go through that?
I think so. I think we need to say the names out loud because people may be watching and knowing that there'll be some discussion and debate in more detail when we get to the line by line. So if you could go ahead,
Sure, yeah.
or whoever.
Yep, thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. So there are a couple different categories, obviously, with the capital budget. The first are pre-approved projects, which I think largely all of them have a briefing note associated with them if you need more history on it. That includes Spring Street project, that's pre-approved, partially grant funded in the amount of $100,000. Truck one replacement, that was pre-approved in 2025, but it got ordered in 26, that's the carry forward. The arena canteen renovation project, that's grant funded. Arena GHD plan phase one, that's pre-approved, 80% grant funded, but staff is still seeking for the grants. Ice resurfacer, the Zamboni was pre-approved. Zoning bylaw update was pre-approved for 25,000 in 2025, and then the rest 25,000 in 2026, so that's why it's only 25 here. The wood chipper was pre-approved, and subsequent to the approval, we were successful for a grant in the same amount, so that's fully covered. And then the library entranceway accessibility ramp was pre-approved and also grant funded. And so are there any questions on that?
Anybody want to dig down on that right now? Go ahead, Councillor Card.
Through you, your worship, the only question I have is on the Spring Street project, there's a statement there that leads me to believe we're not 100% certain that we can do it for $100,000. What's the level of confidence in that?
Okay, go ahead, staff.
Sorry, if you don't mind, Councillor, the point where we're not sure we can get it done.
Page you're on.
17?
Staff are working to determine if it's possible to complete full road width reconstruction between George Street and Church Street, as well as the intersection of Spring and George.
Dave. So I think it'll be, it's,
Here, I go there.
yeah. Oh, this page, okay, got it. So with, sorry. So that is with the funding allocated from previous years and what was already earmarked ahead for this year. So it is gonna be, grant funded from OSIP, 100% gonna be done this year. We were well under budget last year. So we had $200,000 earmarked for the project last year, and I believe our spending was around $140,000, mostly through a lot of in-house work throwing our staff at that project. So we are able to fully complete that project, and the remainder is a combination of leftover funding and grant funding.
Follow up.
Go ahead.
Well, why would we indicate that in the 26 budget line? Like, give the same question.
Yeah, well, apologies to Bree, that would have been better explained.
Okay. Anything else on that page? Okay, we'll go to the next page, thanks. So that's capital budget not approved, I guess, definitely proposed.
So the next category are the newly proposed capital budget projects. IT infrastructure upgrades include moving from a physical server to a cloud-based server. A physical server is required regardless, so and I don't know if it's in the analysis and if it affects.
Yeah.
The physical server is actually a little bit more expensive than moving to the cloud-based. That's the first newly proposed project. Village website reconstruction.
So could I just, sorry,
Go ahead.
or is this when we're gonna talk about each of these, or we're gonna wait?
Or, well, we might as well dive in now, and then we'll get to the line by line.
Because they provided narrative in these slides, so that we
Yeah.
won't be able to come.
For sure.
And there'd be really just commentary. Are you saying that it would cost more to stick with a
Hard.
server on site, because we gotta get a new one, than to ship to the cloud?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So, the way that the backups work is you actually need two servers. So
Yeah.
you need the physical server replaced, then you need a backup. So in the interim this year, it would cost more to replace the physical server and have a backup. Because the one that we have now currently is refurbished, from I think it was 2024.
Yeah.
So both of those would need to be replaced. However, ongoing expenses, and Tammy, you can chime in if there's anything additional. The cloud-based would be based on an annual.
Yeah, I think they had 2,900 bucks a year or so.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so that obviously we wouldn't have with the physical server, but
Right.
that ongoing is an
Right.
expense as well. But in the current budget, the current year, the implications of moving from a physical server to cloud-based is a little bit less.
And any downside to it? Like, it seems to me industries, human resource industries are moving to cloud-based servers and healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. It seems obvious that that's the way to go. Is there a downside to going to the cloud?
Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. No, in fact, and I think Tammy can back this up, for cybersecurity purposes, this is more secure than your physical server.
Right.
Especially given our layout in the office and the fact that we don't have a room that's secured, locked, button controlled, that sort of thing.
Tammy, anything you want to weigh in on that, or that's fine?
Oh, I think she's got it. I mean, the thing is you don't have to manage it the same way. And you always have a risk, it being on premise, so.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Okay, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the CEO. So on this cloud-based service, I'm trying to understand, is this something that we've already started to get estimates for, or is this a estimate of cost based on standard fees that staff has researched?
Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. So through our IT provider OnServe, they gave us both of those quotes ahead of the budget meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's go to village website reconstruction.
Thank you.
Can we go through 16.9?
Do you want me to talk about this, or are you good?
Well, I'm looking, I think I said the elephant in the room, please fix our website. Go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you, through Madam Mayor. As a result of the strategic plan, public feedback sessions that we held at the arena, council heard from some of the citizens that the website's less than stellar for information and asked that we bring a quote back. We did receive two quotes. This was the lower of the two because of the LAS pricing, because it's procurement, bulk procurement. And the other one was in the neighborhood of 35,000. So this is brought to council for consideration.
Okay, Joe.
So I have a little bit of background in this area, so I'd like to say that I find it a little difficult to believe that they could be done for that price. So I'd like to see a little bit more analysis on this one.
So this came through Canoe, right? It came through LAS?
Yeah, sorry. I can add to it if you want me to.
Yeah, just fill in a bit about the LAS and pricing and that.
For sure. I think you probably have more history with LAS and the pricing, but just in terms of doing it for the 16.9, we're looking at a base website overhaul of just the interface. So to integrate booking software and payment software and all those things, those are modules that you can add on after the fact. This is the base, what we have into a newer interface. But Peter, do you want to talk about LAS pricing?
But we're talking about, let's not go down the rabbit hole here. We're talking about approving dollar amount as opposed to all the ins and outs. So I just kind of keep it at 1,000 feet for me, please. We're talking about the money and replacing it. And we've got a challenge that you can't do it for 16.9.
I can also add to that, even if council approves it, I still need to come back and bring a briefing note with the specifics in it for approval.
Okay. Very good. Town hall design renovation. Questions? Go ahead.
No.
Amy, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. So if we decided to do nothing, we would still have to invest $60,000. Is that correct in renovations? And I'm not saying I'm for that. I'm just for clarification purposes. Is that correct?
Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, and you can add to this too. So, if we do nothing as far as moving the design forward, then this building is in dire need of HVAC and some other things under the occupational health and safety and accessibility legislation, but maybe Peter, you can add to that.
Yeah, so I think there's, I just want to echo that same piece. We did that tour a few weeks ago. We identified a number of very pressing issues. Moving the ball forward on this to address the process of addressing those issues. we choose not to move forward with something like this, then it really comes back and puts a heightened sense of urgency on a lot of those items that we walked through. Really addressing those deficiencies. A lot of them are more than just pushing rehabilitation down the road. A lot of them are more urgent, occupational health, safety, and those items that we're pointing to related to security and actually making sure this facility can be a functional facility for staff and residents.
Question?
Okay.
This is the one I have the biggest challenge with, partially because of what Councilor Cardy just said. We're talking years, as we've seen in neighboring municipalities. Years before we would have this dream home on our lot. And in the meantime, I totally agree. We got occupational health and safety concerns that have to be attended to in the short term. And I can't see how we could not do some of the basics here while, soon, not 4 or 5 years down the road. That's my big concern. Secondarily, but equally pressing, is that passing on to a new council, the challenges of funding this are concerning. And that this is, it's a design, it's a nice design. Is it, in fact, what is, can we afford it? Could we do with something less, even if we were building? It seems to me to be as great a thing as anybody could dream of. But is this village in a position to dream that big, in spite of Mayor Jones's always encouraging sign of doing so? But that's where I sit on this one. I'm really struggling to commit to this, particularly in year 4 of a 4-year term.
Okay. Councilor Carr?
Yeah, through your worship. I somewhat agree with Councillor Crapper, but I think we should have more information before I make a decision. Question 1, you've got a couple of categories here. Design or engineering, 43,000, and then contract, 134,000. Like, what do they apply to? A contractor would intimate they're gonna start digging a hole in the ground. I understand the design or engineering part of it. The time frame, if it was laid out, if staff had a proposal to finance this, to debenture it over the life of the building, which would be what, 30 years or 40 years, I'm not sure what. It would make a whole lot difference to me as a councillor as to what we're going to spend. You look at, in a lot of our projects, you look at, in 2027, the ordinary person looks, oh, 2027, we're gonna spend $3 million. No, we're not. We're gonna make a down payment, and then we should have some kind of a proposal to carry it over the life of the asset. So I think if you had that information, you might make a different decision. It wouldn't impact us so much. It is a very energetic project, but not to say it can't be done if given the right circumstance.
Yeah, I think we need more information. Did anybody else want to, before I kind of sum that up?
Just to clarify, we're not talking actually, this proposal, as I understand it, is not to actually start doing anything other than design, right? This is not an actual construction project. This is just to get the design recommendation from the engineer.
So I think we need more information. I think that's where we're stuck, Councillor. Going, what does the 177 represent? And what does 60,000 represent that we've also heard about repairs that are needed?
Follow-up question.
So do we have just jog our memories, because we get so many reports. Have we received a briefing note on the construction of the building yet? On this proposal, have we received a briefing note?
Yes.
Okay, so we've actually seen the design and the $3 million cost was part of that?
Yes, you're right.
Okay, and so have we received a briefing note on breaking down the 177?
No, you're, so
Okay.
as with the previous project, this would be the concept that this is approved in budget. No contracts are being awarded when this budget is approved. Everything has to come back with the proposal and the bylaw to support it and the rationale behind it.
Fair enough, but we've not seen a briefing note on what the 177 covers either, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, have we seen a briefing note on the urgent repairs? I've heard 60,000 a couple of times. have we actually seen what needs to be done to the building?
I would refer back to the closed meeting of council where the facility was toured. So some of those projects, staff have invested a ton of time getting quotations for something that aren't recommended from staff, but would be important when we actually compare this project going forward. We just know that it's significant. We've done some estimates for the higher level items to get to that rough 60,000 number,
Okay,
but nothing that is ready, nothing that would have been ready for council presentation.
but could be.
Yeah, could be.
But could be, and I think that that's where I'm hearing people say they need more information. I know I do. Particularly the 60,000 for repairs, what's urgent, what really falls under occupational health and safety. Go ahead, Councillor Carr.
Through your worship, it appears to me that, no matter what we do, we gotta spend the 60,000. If it's a safety issue, you can't defer it for even a year. I mean, you have to deal with it. So we're gonna spend 60,000 just to be legal in the interim, whether this project goes or it doesn't go. I don't see how you work your way around it unless, have any orders been written, or are we just assuming that they're?
That's why that's why I'm going bit by bit through my questions here to see what do we have. Which sounds like we've got something that will explain the 177. We don't have anything yet to explain 60, but could be turned around quickly on the issues that are particularly health and safety. I'm hearing that, Peter.
So it's, for the most part, again, I just gotta come back to that tour. There's a reason that was in closed session. And most of those reasons remain. Some of those items that we know about, generally speaking, would require third-party consultants, would require spending money to bring that in-house, bring that information in-house back to council. I think that's important work that has to be done, but I think the working towards some solution is important.
So what I think you're hearing from council will probably be, when we get to the end of this today, that the 177 gets parked for this year, the 60 gets included, and we take care of the stuff that's urgent. So it'd be nice to see a list of what's urgent at the next meeting. Have I got that right, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, that feels like we're no decisions are made yet, but I agree with Councillor Card that before we and Councillor Cropper, before we have this dream big idea, there's stuff that we have to do in the here and now, and that should probably be the budget figure that we're looking at for 26. Everybody agree with that so far? Councillor Card?
Yeah, I think, you see the big ticket, 177,000, we get a little, sticker shock, so to speak, but doing the tour, we did see that this building is in, disrepair for sure, and does need a lot of upgrades. I just, in our fourth year, I'd be afraid to spend that money, improve it, and then who knows who's at the table next year, and it could get canned. So that would be my fear, is to spend the big ticket money and be afraid that it might not even go forward from that.
Okay, so take care of the needs that you saw when you're on the tour.
Mhm.
Councillor Goner, are you at the same area there? Take care of what you saw on the tour?
In general, I'm agreeing with, Councilor Cardy on this, in terms of we need to take care of the things that we saw on the tour that were dire, but I am concerned about something that, our manager of public works said, that, it might cost money to get the studies in place that would tell us what we need. So if we don't know what that additional cost would be in terms of getting the studies, I'm wondering if we're gonna end up close to the same thing by the time we add the actual renovations in with the studies. Are we in the same ballpark? So I do need more information before we can make
Okay.
a decision.
So how do you want to leave that? Think about how you want to leave that, because we need more information. What number do we put in there when we're all said and done tonight? Okay. Good.
Can I just add to that?
Absolutely.
Sorry, just so council understands. So this originally stemmed from a facilities feasibility study. So this town hall, harbor, we did all the facilities. We did an insurance review as well of all of the facilities, which rendered a report. And we outlined that in a report to council, I believe it was late 24, early 25. And staff recommended at that point in time, instead of piecemealing it and fixing things as it goes, we look at a bigger whole review of the whole building envelope. And so at that point in time, council said, yes, please do that. We brought the design back, and this is where that's stemmed from. And so as it's in the budget, a capital project, it is I'll defer to Tammy as to why, but if I'm not mistaken, if we add 60,000 to the budget, it's an increase of about 2.66%. As repairs are not capital, so that just so council's aware of that, but I don't know if Tammy, you wanna add to that?
Yes,
Adding
thank you.
60, but taking off 177.
But the 177, and please explain it better than I can, doesn't have a tax rate implication increase.
Yes, your worship, this is based on that it would be part of a large capital project and it would be debenturable. You could debenture it. If it's repairs of $60,000 as an example, unless it's part of a capital project, you wouldn't be able to debenture that. So it would become part of your net levy. So 60,000 on your net levy is about 2.6% increase.
Okay, Peter?
Yeah, I apologize, your worship, because this probably is really pertinent the way the conversation went. So just thank you, CEO Westgate, pulling up that report for the reminder for the facilities. So we had those third-party consultants and the engineers identify almost $750,000 worth of repairs for this building. So that was really the impetus for start to working on a solution that was gonna last to 50 years, not investing $750,000 into a structure that would only in part cover the services required by the municipality. So we're not necessarily comparing 177 and 60. We are comparing 3 million and 3 million for a facility that serves the public and satisfies the issues with $700,000 in short and near term spending on this project itself. So the $60,000 is partially from that report on the immediate fixes that need to be required, and that doesn't cover all the items that the third party did identify as immediate, but just for reference.
Okay. I've got a couple of questions here, Councillor Card and then Councillor Vaughn.
To your worship, going back to my comments, Sarah, I guess that was the point I was trying to make, that perhaps the big project is cheaper debentured than the short-term fix. If you could, I mean, if there was a financial plan for, and I'm not sure what the amortization period is for a major building, but I'm guessing it's about 30 years. So if you spread that cost over 30 years and we realize what the cost is per year, if there was a financial plan for both approaches, then we could decide what we want to do with good information. So I think it should be presented in the briefing note. This is what the major project will cost over the next 30. This is what the fix it now project's going to cost, because it may, if it's not a debenturable or a loan applicable project, we might pay through the nose right up front to get it done.
The other advantage of doing that is it puts out in the public. This is a debacle we've got. 60 grand gets us hardly anything. 700,000 is what the third party said the building needs as it sits, and a new build is 3 million. But I agree that we need some briefing notes to help us understand. I didn't mean to jump ahead either, Joe, but I just wanted to follow up on what Councillor Carter said.
Councillor Card took
We
care of
need
my
reports. Yeah. So we need some information before we move forward on it. Madame.
That's all the questions for that one?
And I guess if it's not a budget implication, there's no urgency. But I'd like to see the briefing, like, whatever we do, it's gonna be long-term debt unless it's a 60, which isn't gonna do anything for us. So even if it's a $710,000 recommendation on the repairs that this building needs, that's not a debenture, that's something that we would still have to get long-term debt on, so we need to turn around that. A briefing note.
So just for clarification, do you want to keep this in the budget or do you want to remove it or just?
Well, it's not in the budget.
It is proposed for the 2026 capital budget. The issue is it doesn't have an implication on the tax rate increase.
Right.
So if we keep it in, we can bring back a briefing note and council can then direct it. If we bring back both of the analysis, we'll bring back the briefing note that we brought about the feasibility study and what's required.
Well, sure, I think everybody wants it. It's a process for you, whether you leave it on the document or not. We understand it's not impacting the overall budget, the overall levy.
Sorry, I don't know if it's a process or I need council direction to take it out of the budget or keep it in the budget. That's the problem.
I think it's your terminology. It's not a budget item for us at this point in time while we're trying to figure out what's the tax increase gonna be for 26. So you say tomato, I say tomato, that's all. So put it wherever you like. We want reports to come back. You can leave it there, but we're fine with that. We understand, it has no dollar implication in 2026. Okay?
Sure.
Which I didn't understand. That's super helpful to, thanks to Councillor Card and others to. The average reader, thing or listener about a budget item, when you're talking about 177,000. You jump to certain conclusions about what that means in relation to a tax increase, so very helpful.
So.
To come back to that, we would debenture 177, Tammy?
Yes, through your worship. Yes, you can under infrastructure Ontario, if it is a large ongoing project, you can debenture on the construction basis until the actual end, and then the final debenture would be developed. So they will do construction loans or debentures at a lower rate than you would get at a financial institution. So you can do that. What I would, if I may, what I would
Please.
suggest is if you leave it as is, you can always come back with a budget amendment at some point, if need be, and maybe go into potential short-term borrowing if council decides to go in a different direction. So if you're going to leave it as not hitting the levy at this point, you could potentially do a budget amendment at a later date, as long as it doesn't hit obviously the levy. So it would be it'd have to be a short-term kind of funding loan, either through reserves or a loan.
My gut tells me to take it out, team. Gut says take it out, bring it back, and we're ready, prepared for it.
Especially where we are in the term that we sit in.
Unless we can turn around, it's 700,000, the 60 is a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Not to go down.
Yeah.
So it's either 700,000 or 3 million. But I'd still like to see the reports. Joe, what did you want to say?
Well, I just wanted to clarify, because we were talking about, I would like to see the reports, yes, following up on what you just said, but Madam Mayor, I just wanted to clarify, it is in the budget, it's number 18, we're talking about removing it completely.
Sorry?
It is in the proposed budget for 2026, on slide 19. It is line item number 18.
19, did you say?
Yes, of the presentation.
So we got different numbers.
The other document.
Gotcha.
Right there.
So the conversation is, if I understand correctly, what the CEO is asking. The conversation is, do we remove it completely as a line item, which then impacts the levy that was proposed at the beginning of the presentation? Or do we leave it in, and as Tammy is suggesting, address this with an amendment later on? That's what I'm understanding, and
Yeah, so-
did I misunderstand?
I see it there. It's at 18, but it's got 0 impact on the budget. At the very far right, it says 0, so it's not in the calculation for the
levy?
levy.
Is that accurate? Sorry,
Sorry?
is that what the,
That's what that says. It would be, yeah, if you wanna keep it in and you're gonna debt fund it. So the next column is debt funding at 177. And so when you move over to the right, the 3 more columns, it shows 0 impact on the budget.
okay, sorry, I misread
No,
that then.
We haven't
So-
got to these sheets yet, but that's what that means.
Okay,
Okay, so what are we gonna do with this, team? I'm not seeing a lot of support to undertake a major build in 2026. Barry,
Like I said,
you need the reports.
it's. If my experience with safety items is, we're gonna commit to $60,000. If there's safety items, we have no choice. we can't sidestep the safety items in the budget. And how soon are they gonna happen? We at least have to have a path forward here and tell the powers that be, to do things properly, what we're gonna do. We're either gonna fix the discrepancies immediately and eat the $60,000, which is a 4% tap on our, what we're doing here for final numbers, or we're gonna get, some information that says, we'd be smarter to go ahead with the project. $750,000, where are you gonna have your operations? Well, this whole building's torn apart to do a $750,000 renovation to a building that's well over 100 years old. I see a lot of implications here that just aren't accounted for, where, my way of thinking, you could put an addition on the back of the place and not disrupt anything that's going on here. The only thing we do is a council chamber, which we can, different avenues to find that, but we don't have enough.
What we're lacking is the information, so this is my suggestion. That we remove the 177 because. It doesn't matter, we can leave 177 in there, I'd like the reports to come in, giving us these three, not even options. What's required for the 60, the 725 and the 3 million.
And if I may, including which are in fact occupational health and safety items. So we took a tour upstairs and some may be, some may not be, it depends. So I think they need to be delineated by
Right.
must do's versus should do's.
Right. And it makes no difference to me, except if we're not going ahead with 177, I'd like this document to be accurate. How soon can we get that report back before we pass the budget?
Well,
You've already got 2 of them, right?
Yeah.
Through your worship, I think it's the majority was probably calling attention back to 3 previous reports to council.
Okay,
And then, trying to work in some of the things that were still occupational health safety, but were maybe not be specific to the structure, so. I don't think May committee of the whole would be reasonable, but perhaps make council. Depends a lot on, I think I'm looking back at the previous reports and reviewing if we've hit the threshold of reasonable to council, if those reports stand up on their own.
see, my concern is a 60 an accurate number?
Worship, the 60 really was the shortest of terms to immediate impact, while still recognizing that the building needed long-term work. So that was purely staff and also purely myself looking at the things that needed to go right away. There's certainly some things that are safety related that might be a little beyond, that are going to be beyond 60. Depends who you ask.
Okay, so this is what I'm thinking, team. And we are not likely going to agree to undertake a $3 million build since it is May 1st of 2026 and our term ends in October. So if we're not gonna do that, then we don't need the $177 to start that work. That should go with the new council. Everybody, on that piece, okay. So that answers the question whether the 177 should come out or stay in. I think it should come out. The next question is, the points that you 2 have been making, is what is urgent that we need to do? We have to factor some money into the budget to take care of that. I don't think that's unreasonable for us to get that before council in May. So when we set the next meeting for our budget, I'd like that report to come in and not to worry about the other things right now. Just is 60 inaccurate money? And then, as Barry said, it goes into the budget and we find other things to pull out. How's that sound for everybody? Okay? And the public would have heard our whole debate on this. It's not, it's just not an easy answer, but where we are, as Councillor Crapper has said, where we are in our term, the amount, and the commitment that needs to be made. This would be great for the first term of a council to look through something, but certainly not here. So everybody right with that? So we're gonna take the 177 out, Tammy, and we're gonna take it out, Kim, and expect a report on the urgent needs. It doesn't have to be 60. What are the urgent needs that we need to look at? Again, go back to something that Council Card always says, before the next council comes in, what are the things that we need to take care of? All right, with everybody? So we go back to this other sheet. And sidewalk machine.
So Peter, I'll let you know for that, unless there's
Sorry?
questions.
Yeah, no, we're town hall, we're done with, but I think there's questions on sidewalk machine.
Yeah, and looking at some of the things that that council's gonna tackle in this budget year and in the near years to come. I'm just wondering, at the price of a sidewalk machine this year and another one next year, over $200,000. A lot of major companies get involved in refurbished programs, so you take an old machine that has been properly maintained for its anticipated life expectancy, and it's reconditioned to basically like new. Those prices usually range around 50 to 55%, and that's large equipment, I'm sure. But that's my experience for large equipment. I can't see how this would be a whole lot different. The other thing that I see in the little bit of research I did, that transitioning to a trackless from a holder, there's no direct interchangeability of attachments. There's some, at the very least, some fooling around has to be done with bracketry and that kind of thing. So I'm just wondering if Public Works could entertain the thoughts of at least getting a price on refurbishing these two machines. $210,000 this year and again next year. I have no idea what the machines are, but I'm sure that you're following some kind of a PM program for them. So they should be. What are the hours on the machines, Peter? Do you recall?
So, yeah, so there's a whole bunch of questions there, so apologize. So I'll try to go backwards. So I don't have the number of hours off the top of my head. Reminder of the program, we did purchase a relatively new machine for 2019. And then we purchased a refurbished unit. For the last couple of years, these sidewalk machines, we think the snow plow and snow removal, they run 365 days of the year. It feels like they're doing work all year round. And especially in the last 2 years, it was the one would go to the shop and the tow truck that brought it would bring the other one back. And they went back and forth all winter long. So that's why it was really important for us to have the two machines. We did engage in that program where we bought one that was relatively new and bought one that was refurbished. The units themselves have served their purpose. We're mostly looking at the asset management plan. One of these units is 12 years old now and should be replaced. The reason for switching to trackless, even with different units, was mostly in procurement and the serviceability and how they would serve the actual build itself. Getting that pricing through procurement was a big advantage. Looking at two new ones year after year, I think wouldn't normally be recommended. It would be nice to space those out a little bit more. If it wasn't for the fact that our units are already hitting near the end of life. Staff are actively investigating finding used units in the same manner as we did before. We're hitting budget without having found a used unit that was suitable at this time. Some of that depends on other budgets. It's also a bit like buying a used vehicle. You never know what it's gonna have in it or what its service life is or what its maintenance history is or its problems. So we're balancing those questions right now. Right now, staff haven't found a suitable used unit to recommend. The asset management plan is saying one this year. With a new one this year, we'd probably a lot more comfortable looking or waiting to try to find a refurbished one. We also can keep the two we have in service, but for comparison, last year as well, just this question I wasn't asked, but the repairs and maintenance on the sidewalk machines last year totaled around $45,000. So we're seeing 25% of one of these units being put in maintenance, which is a combination of how expensive maintenance. You've got one service provider, parts are all coming, in the case of our holders, from overseas in Europe versus a product that's made in Ontario. But we also saw a lot of downtime based on its 12-year-old unit. We knew we were gonna see that, so I still feel like we just bought the 2018 unit, but time is really flying, and that unit is of course now 8 years old, and that's our newer unit.
So
And not that it factors into your decision, But just like we looked at the 177,000 and it was not gonna impact the budget because the recommendation from staff is that this be debentured, be debt funded. It doesn't impact on the tax levy.
No, but it does, your worship, impact our borrowing potential.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, so,
They would have factored that in when they made the
yeah,
recommendation.
you keep adding the 210, the truck, another truck, and just shortly down the road, I'm sure that we've been looking at a loader. That's what I'm looking at is 3 years out, not this year, not next year, but when I say a refurbished machine, don't get me wrong, I don't mean a well-used or good-used machine. I mean a machine that has been taken apart to the bare bones by professionals. And the engine's overhauled, the frame's overhauled, the hydraulic, everything's overhauled. You still own the machine. You're not shopping for another one. You're paying somebody to refurbish it. So it's not like you're out shopping for a good used machine. You're investing. Peter said that maintenance was $45,000 last year. Well, for $100,000 or $105,000, you can have a machine that's basically new because you own the machine. You're paying the $105,000 upfront to fix it.
Okay.
Make it new.
So we are not going to support this and ask staff to defer a year and perhaps find a way of refurbishing it. And put the money in for refurbishing, or can I hear from someone else here?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Peter, there was a note in the briefing note sheet about asset management plan, and this conforms to the asset management plan. I was looking at the plan a few minutes ago, and I can't see where this is outlined. Is this something that was originally planned to happen in 26, or can it be deferred to 27?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so leadership of course, everything can be deferred. The issue with not following the asset management plan is things start to stop. So if we are going to fund the asset management plan, we needing to fund something isn't maybe the right terminology. I apologize here. Somebody who's much more well versed in that whole theory would be better on answer it. But the idea is if you're not investing in your equipment, your facilities, that just starts getting more and more expensive. So the asset management plan had equipment, I think it was $177,000 specifically in the asset management plan. Just remembering that those are 2024 dollars. So now we're looking at 2026 dollars, of course. The equipment section of the asset management plan specifically had the sidewalk machine.
So,
Go ahead.
So if we follow through with the rationale that Councillor Card is proposing, where rather than replacing, we're refurbishing, does that mean that we have to revisit these calculations in the asset management plan? And how quickly can that be done? How does that impact what we have already approved in an asset management plan?
Go ahead.
So through your stuff might be a question more for PSD for specifically how it impacts, but it certainly impacts. So anytime we push equipment further, we pay higher in operational costs, but then the equipment gets more expensive. So our percentages, again, everything starts to stack. It kind of starts to accumulate. Now, things can continue to be pushed down the road, but eventually these machines don't run. These facilities don't, it's not a sky's fall. I'm not trying to rate them. You can only push that so far. And that's the I don't want to assume the difficult job of council has in prioritizing this, because that is what it is. From a staff perspective, this equipment is at the end of its life. Refurbishment, I'm not seeing savings. I think we sometimes can get refurbished or demo models, but I'm not seeing those right now. It might be a way to bring this in a different way. I think staff, we've always looked at getting units that we could make work for the number of years, and I think that program is really successful. This year, asset management plan is bringing this up as a replacement of a 12-year-old unit, and I don't have another replacement right now, other than.
Okay, but I didn't hear Councillor Card suggest you buy a refurbished one. I heard him say you take one of ours and have it refurbished. That was what I heard him say. I don't know if that changes what you were gonna say at all, Peter, but just, he was pretty clear. I heard it very clearly.
Yeah, so Stuart, I don't, the same answer, I have no information on that,
Okay.
pricing that.
Okay, Councillor Card.
So again, the asset management plan, you say it's reached the end of life, that's on paper. So if you do any, I have some experience with this, if you do any investigation, the current condition has a lot to do with it. The preventative maintenance program would have a lot to do with it. And the thing we have going for us right now is that we have two machines. We can, perhaps, I'm not making it clear what refurbish is. Refurbish is going through every nut, bolt, screw, gear, pump, engine, everything in the machine. So basically you end up with a machine like, major machinery, $3 million machines, Caterpillar bulldozers, rebuilding for $1.5 million. Everybody does it. They extend their life, 2-3 times. And if you can double the life of this machine with $100,000 investment as opposed to, just buying a new one outright, because the paperwork says it's 12 years, it's time to buy another one. You're maybe spending money you don't need to. I think that, the rebuild, refurbish, whatever you wanna call it, program approach makes a lot of sense in a place the size of Westport, where we have, we're a mini city kind of thing, for sure. We have to supply all of these things, but we should make every effort to supply them and maintain our level of service at reduced costs.
I'm gonna go to Tammy because you've been listening. I suspect you're gonna say that if we bought a new debenture or long-term debt, but if we're refurbishing and doing repairs, it's out of our operations.
Yes, your worship, it would be, or I guess you could get a temporary loan, but it would be at a bank rate.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, because,
So-
yeah,
okay.
you could,
Thanks.
but I mean, the banks, they always want something that, an asset to support their
Right.
loans as well, so.
Right, okay, well, that's helpful. John.
I'm wondering if this is perhaps we're in the same situation we were with the previous conversation we had, where right now we have something new on the table that we didn't have when we first looked at the asset. We were originally thinking we had to replace these machines. Councilor Card is bringing up a good point that they can be refurbished. Maybe we need information to find out if that's possible with this particular machine. Is there a service provider that can do it? What would it cost? And then we have something to compare to the 210.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
I was gonna ask, what is the downside if we defer this for a year? Peter?
Risk of, risk of loss of service, like that's always the risk for anytime we're deferring capital funding that's replacing the existing asset,
Right,
risk to service delivery.
all right, and then my second question, if you don't mind, my second question is, you need to explain better to council the asset management plan. Because, Councilor Card, draws on his own experience on, maintenance records and condition. And when, my understanding, and I get that, it's like the fire truck that needs to be replaced at 180,000 K. But that's not the way asset management planning works, as I understand it. Can you fill that gap in for them? That if they don't spend it on this, they've got to spend it on something else? And what the consequence is if they don't keep the asset management plan up to date with the government and with other agencies? They need to hear that.
Yeah, so hopefully, your worship, I can tie that. So number one, maintaining the asset management plan is a requirement of the provincial government. The idea is that the municipality will properly fund its assets. The direct path that's done is, of course, up to council deliberation. Of course, council bringing their experience is always a good thing. We just know that when we're looking at something like this from an asset management perspective, we're buying years of service, and we are looking at doing estimated useful service. It is certainly a paper exercise, but it's based on real world data. A lot of municipalities choose to shorten their service life based on resale value. They might get rid of a plow truck at 7 years instead of 10. Municipalities in other jurisdictions, other provinces, other states, other countries have some more residual value. Other municipalities would extend those lifespans out, knowing that these are big ticket items and the maintenance costs are manageable. Sometimes policies would be set on if once it hits 20% of its annual, once it's 20% of its total value, then staff should start looking at replacing that asset because the maintenance costs are starting to become so high. The biggest issue, I think, with asset management plan and just trying to word is the idea that these numbers are on paper, but they're not based in nothing. They are based in averages across the province. And I think it's important that I think it's still important we follow it. It's not to say that each individual item couldn't be extended by a year to here or there, but the risk is always at these single staff. And that's kind of the only way I have it in my head is that in 2029, we end up with a loss of service, and or having to replace 2 or 3 units at the same time. Some of the factors are just maintenance costs. Those are the easiest ones for public works. Others, in the fire truck example is a great example where we have very low mileage, apparatus. But we have insurance, studies and rules and outside factors that set a fixed estimated useful life of 20 years, regardless of the condition of the vehicle itself. For factors like sidewalk machine, it's gonna be mostly maintenance and service. That's gonna be it.
And the last question I wanted to ask you is, what is you can tell I'm struggling taking out a debenture in, with 4 months left to go in our term. I'm struggling, so I'm trying to work my way around it. I'm not there yet. What is the length of time when you order one of these?
So in this case here, they're a little more available through the free procurement program. Tariffs have actually pretty significantly impacted this industry as these machines that are built in Ontario they're not finding the market in the States
Okay,
due to the tariffs. So availability is a little bit better with something like this. Like normally I'd be coming to council saying, if we don't order this by June, we're ordering, so if we order this by June, we can have it by next June. So we're looking at actually winter 2027
Right.
to 2028. In this case here, we are still working with 2026 winter control.
okay. So where are you at there, team? Amy?
So to get through you, Madam Mayor, my question, as you were talking was, if we leave this in the budget line and it doesn't affect the levy, do we have to still approve and spend that money if you come to us with one of these new machines come like down the line? If we approve it or leave it in there right now, can we still say no to it later when it comes to us as a report?
Sure. It doesn't impact on the levy, right? It's gonna
Right.
be long-term debt.
Right.
And then as Councillor Card was alluding to, especially in light of the fact that we're talking about potentially a $3 million debenture. I'd like to feel more comfortable with where we are at in our limits and what the risks were to a future council at continuing to add debt. Regardless of where the debt's drawn from. Just bring us up to speed on where we did get that information, thanks through to Kip. But I just wanna know what the issues are as it builds up and maybe project if we did approve the building. And sidewalk machines and with the AMP, you can actually see the other pieces of machinery and project the costs over the next 5 years. If none of it can be paid, if it all has to be financed, which it does. What's that picture start to look like 10 years down the road? And I guess that's the purpose of the AMP in a way, and I'm assuming that by doing the asset management plan, we're building it in a way that's affordable. That we know that we can take out those loans and pay those loans back, but the economies are, it's a risky time, uncertain time. With bank rates and really what I'm thinking about is a $3 million. I think we gotta have equipment to clear roads. And I was reading it's also used for sewage or for lagoon cleaning. So prioritizing what our loans go to is kind of what this conversation leads me to think about.
My suggestion is we take it out. The next council can order it in their budget, 26, 27, and the turnaround is not that long.
Yeah, I say, I think a council in a municipality our size should look at every opportunity. The AMP plan, I did some quick research there. They are adjustable. Lots of municipalities adjust, as Peter said. The AMP plan is based on the real world information that's supplied. But we haven't been told that we fit into that category. We don't know what the hours are on the machine. Any research I've done on Boulder says they're good for 10,000 hours plus. I don't know where we are. You're gonna have repairs on any machine. You're gonna have repairs on a new machine. Let's categorize them. Are they because you caught the curb and bent bent plow or because the engine failed or the hydraulics failed. That's not enough information for me to make a decision on $220,000. I'd like to see every avenue explored. And as Councillor Crabber said, looking down the road, do one this year, one next year, we're doing a couple of vehicles. And then you have a major problem somewhere and you need to borrow $500,000 to fix something. Where do we sit then? We've left the village, that's the hazard or the shortfall I see. We have two machines, the odds of them both dying at the same time. And seriously, I would think you'd always have one running anyway, even if they were crap, you'd have one running. And I don't think they are. I've seen them run. They're rusty and whatever. I think that begs for a situation where those machines could go into a wash bay and have the salt washed off them every time, instead of living in the environment they do, where they carry the contaminants with them that wanna eat the body right off them. So I think there's a lot more to taking care of things than just buying a new one when the AMP plan says it's time to buy a new one.
Yeah, I'm just not comfortable adding to the debt team, partly what you said, Councillor Crapper. We've managed to get some debt, some room for debt, but.
Could we ask through you, Peter, to look into the refurbishing of our existing ones and see what you can learn about that concept that Councillor Card shared, and bring that back in a report? Like, it'd be nice to know that this term, because in the next term, people will have that information as well as can make some
For
choices.
budget consideration, or take it out and get that
Yeah,
report on file?
yeah,
Okay, I understand, yeah. I think that's a good idea. Joe, were you trying to get in there?
No, you just took it.
Just quickly for some guidance, the inclination would be to go to the supplier and say, can you do this? But that's not necessary. You go to, a machine is a machine, it's an amalgamation of parts and pieces. Any good shop with a good reputation can do that work. They can tear it down to nothing and put it back together. It can be painted to look like new, can have the engine overhauled, it can have all of those things done, and basically end up with a new machine. And like I said before, I've looked there a few places, and your AMP plan can be modified, things can be moved out based on what you have to work with. I mean, why would you replace a perfectly good machine just because the AMP plan says 10 years is up? It might have sat parked in the garage for 10 years, and are you still gonna replace it? I know these haven't, but it strikes me as not a good judgment.
It's risk management, I
Yes,
guess.
it is.
Okay, so we're getting consensus around the table that even though I guess it impacted our budget. Where did it go there? Nope, didn't impact the budget at all. Okay, so now we're to rec master plan, partially funded. Folks have a piece of that. Kim,
Yeah, so.
sorry, rec master plan.
Okay, so thank you through Madam Mayor. There was a briefing note sent to council in December of 2025 regarding the importance of the recreation master plan and securing future grant opportunities. Council, if you remember, FODA has donated $20,000 for partially to fund this rec master plan, and then the other is, sorry, can't remember where it's funded from.
34.
Next slide. Is rate funded. So Tammy, can you expand on what rate funded means?
Yes, through your worship. That would be basically from user fees. So part of the reason that the net levy, so it turns out to be net levy. If you had enough user fees to cover capital as well, it wouldn't have hit the net levy. So it actually turns out to be net levy because it's charged against your user fees. So it is still, yeah, it is still, yeah, it is still really net levy because you're not fully covering
And user fees,
yeah.
So it is 34K. We all know the background and how many times we talked about it here. Not saying we're gonna do it, but when we get to the line by line, that's the background piece. Floor cleaning machine. I need it at my house. Is that you, Chris? Okay, madam?
Thanks, through you, Madam Mayor. This was an initiative by Chris, when he was reviewing the invoices for just 1 year's worth of floor cleaning at the arena and the time it takes for staff to do it. I'll let you expand on the new information though, because I don't think Tammy has that either.
Yeah, thanks, through you, Madam Mayor. We priced out a number of floor scrubbers, floor cleaning machines, and, they were coming in at around that $8,000 mark. We continue to do further research, even past when this was given in, and we have found one, a very good quality one made in Canada, dealing directly with the company for $3,000. So I would like to readjust that amount to $3,000, and the more we use it, the more use it.
Did you see them smiling?
I smiled too when I talked to the company. The more we use it, the more uses we find for it, the deeper clean it can provide. So I think, you know, renting a floor scrubber twice in 1 year would pretty much pay for it.
Done.
Thank you.
Done. And welcome signage. So, Kim and Peter, is this our last one that we still need 2 more? Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
This is ends up being a project in progress. So the village placed to you in 2024,
Maybe.
so it still is still completed or directed off, but just to replace another entrance sign.
Sure.
2 entrance signs, this would do both. Apologies, yeah.
This would do both.
This would do both.
Okay.
First impression of the village, I would say do it.
Yeah.
Nothing looks worse than pulling into a village or a hamlet and there's a crappy looking sign
Yeah.
out there that's faded and outdated.
Auction off the old one at
That's an antique.
some
We
event in
just grabbed
town.
$5,000 from rec for this. So everybody's okay with that, all right. So now that takes us to our line by line. And so I'm on page 19 of the slide deck. We've probably talked about a lot of the stuff already now. So the way we normally do it is we leave the category, and this time it's different names, the categories. But it's starting with pre-approved. And when we look at hard right, because that's what's gonna be rolled up into the budget. So all the other numbers, it may be that they're transferring from reserves, or they're doing debt funding, but right now we're looking to see what the impact is gonna be that we haven't already talked about.
Okay, I'm sorry, can I just ask, are we looking in the binder charts?
Your
or the-
handout.
The hand.
Yeah, did you get a handout?
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Yeah, there you go, on page 19 of
okay,
it.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got it.
You good?
Good.
Take your time.
Now I've got it.
So everybody's there, we've got Spring Street reconstruction, we've talked about, it's granted at 100,000. The rec truck is being a transfer from reserves. This is does it require an explanation, anybody? Okay. Canteen renovations, 20,000, is that the donation from Florida? Okay, say that out loud. The the arena GHG plan. It's 2,100,000 and we are debt funding 420. Have we already arranged for that debt funding? No. Do we need to discuss this? I thought we were going ahead with the grant, with the full grant, like where are we at there, team?
So I'll defer to Peter, but
The risk of having to defer to Tammy in a short second, so the council's approved project. Funding it is the majority of the purpose for the budget deliberations, so if there was a surplus in money in operations of $420,000, council may have to just fund it from the levy. So once council determines where staff want to fund that from, or where they direct staff to fund that from, that's when that comes back. Tammy may be the right one to.
So Tammy, this would be a recommendation because it's capital, we use long-term debt or a debenture, is that right?
Yes, your mayor, yes.
And you're suggesting that we could do it incrementally through IO?
I believe so, yes. I think it would meet that requirement, so, because it is a large capital item, so you could do it incrementally through a construction loan through IO.
Okay, because that's a change from since we put the wastewater in, although you're not the first person to tell me that now they will do incremental construction loans for IO. Okay,
Yes, yes. And as a matter of fact, that was the question even when the CAO applied this time for the plow truck.
That's right.
that They did request that whether or not it was a construction loan or not.
okay, and so is there a sheet somewhere in our package that will give us the idea of if we add 420 to our debt? What does that look like? Because that's how you were proposing to pay for this, right, Kim, was through IO?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. So we're still chasing down grants for that amount. But of course, if council approves this budget as is, then we would wait till we hear from the grant. The work is ongoing. We don't require the funding immediately. But we do have a debt schedule in your package, but it doesn't contemplate all the decisions in this draft budget. So no, short answer, there's nothing in the package that would say what the implication is. But we're still looking at grants and we're still waiting to hear back from some other grants on that Hydro project.
Okay, so when we meet again for the budget, that's another report that we would like to see, which is options for this. How viable are or likely are the other grant options? And what's the worst case scenario, if I can use that phrase, for us if we use a debenture from IO? We can't approve it in the blind, not knowing what it's gonna be. If we feel we can get a grant somewhere, then let's just tell us that, please. And otherwise, what would the IO grant cost us monthly? Yes, we put that back because that will impact our budget. Okay, ice resurfacer. Did we talk about the ice resurfacer yet?
No.
No?
That
Pre-approved. Oh, okay, thank you.
yeah, we're still on the paper.
Oh, yes, okay, so it's pre-approved and that's a debt as well. So again, we just need that added to the sheet. We'd like to keep our eye on the ball. So 420 is coming in for the building and we're adding 210 to long-term debt. We just want to make sure we keep our head above water, going back to what Councilor Crapper was saying, we're adding this and we're adding that. So then we've still got pre-approved the zoning bylaw, 25,000. That will be out of our levy. The wood chipper, we got a grant for, and the library entranceway renovations, that's all grant. So we'll move to the next category, unless there's any questions, okay, which is recommended. And so we've got the first two items there are the IT upgrade and the website overhaul that we've talked about and we want to leave in, okay? Town hall design, we are not leaving in the 177 and we're asking for a report to come back at our next budget meeting that breaks out what is most urgent. And that will be funded through the levy.
Could I just back up for 1 second?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. On the website, we want to bring back to us, we want to make sure that what we're buying is inclusive of what we need, right? So does it include taking all the stuff from our existing website, putting it into that, like, we need to know if we're gonna have a new website, what the total cost is gonna be.
Okay, that's not what, so can we bring back some details to the next budget meeting on what your two quotes for 35 and 16 would give us?
Yeah,
And then-
my worry is if we go with this one and then we find out, well,
Yeah,
yeah, but that was, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good point from you and Councillor Aragona, but we need to see the report, so we've got
Yeah.
the information, all right. Transfer to capital, so this goes back to a bylaw that we passed several years ago, that we would move money every year into capital line. I don't know if it was 25, we've not talked about that yet. Team.
Yeah,
So this was our decision, I think the last council, maybe there, that we would move every year a certain amount into, staff can tell me how much. Was it a percentage or a dollar amount? We're not sure.
I wasn't here that whole time, sorry.
Okay.
And I don't know that it was necessarily a bylaw or direction of council at that point in time to at least put forward 25,000 to the reserves.
Annually, but it was an annual thing.
Yeah.
So the 25,000 is, am I right so far, Peter? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, I don't wanna say arbitrary, it was our commitment to try and build up our capital reserves in times when, we were desperate, so, I'm leaving that for discussion as we whittle things down. The 25 will impact the budget. We've talked about the sidewalk, machine. We've got the rec master plan, thank you to FODA. And so the transfer, so that is not gonna be rate funded, right? Cause we don't have any user fee to fund the rec master plan, so that 14,000 needs to move over to the right column to be funded out of our levy. Unless you've got a stash to tell us about that's not user fees that we can use for that 14 grand. Ma'am.
Your worship, so the actual operating does have the amount in it. So the amount that has been quoted does have the transfer to capital for this, recognizing. So it's not going to impact the bottom line calculation. Because if I move it to net levy here, then it would come out of the operating in the recreation piece. So it has been accounted for. But I couldn't until we actually did. It's kind of like the chicken and the egg until I actually did the levy calculation for recreation. I didn't know if there was enough user fees for this project. So it
Okay,
doesn't
but
impact the-
you're
yeah.
You're saying yippee skippy, we don't have to move it over to the right-hand column.
No, you don't.
Okay, good. Are we okay with that?
Mhm.
Yeah,
I didn't understand it all, but as long as we know we don't have to move to the right column, okay. Floor scrubber, we're moving that to 3 grand. And public works administration transferred to efficiency reserve. Since we're talking reserves, I think I'm gonna go to Tammy to explain what the transfer to the efficiency reserve is of 21,000.
Actually, I'll just defer to Peter, but this is, there's 9,000 and 12,000. I think it was from the savings from moving to your LED street lighting. And also, I believe the other piece, although don't quote me, is around the garage. But I'll ask Peter there. It was $9,000.
Oh, okay, I thought
two
maybe you
together. Yeah.
You had that. So what do we need 21K for here?
So we don't, the province handled the efficiency money, remember that from 18?
Oh, the lights?
So it was lights, it was, that was when we brought more public works in-house.
Yes,
So
right.
the savings that were generated from those two projects, the council determined they put that back into an efficiency reserve for efficiency projects. There's no obligation at any point. The funding was provided by the provincial government specifically to find efficiencies. We did 3 projects, I think. The third one is escaping, but the savings are from the streetlights,
Yeah.
utility bills.
Yeah.
And the truck and the plowing and the winter control that we brought in-house, which at the time saved the other 12,000.
Okay, so this is still found money, if you will, because we've been more efficient in lights or trucks. On the reserve page, do we have an idea of what the efficiency reserve is? I'm going line by line here. I'm not changing what I'm doing. Tammy, do we know what the efficiency reserve is that 21K is going into?
Yes.
Yeah.
Preliminary balance is 71,000.
Yeah, there.
Okay, so 71K and we're gonna add 21.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, and that's optional, just like the
It's
other
optional.
reserve.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
transfers.
okay.
And and is it something that deserves a reflection at this point of, do we continue to do that forever and et cetera, like?
So the projects that we invested in are still, I'm gonna say a profit and
Yeah.
efficiency, and so we're taking the money from that and putting it in here.
Yeah,
We can use that money however we like.
yeah, right.
Okay, It's just, yeah, we put a little bit away always for the rainy day, that old
Yeah,
adage,
yeah.
yeah, but it's our discretion. Okay, then moving down to, the next columns there, stormwater, playground equipment, oh, I'm gonna be sad for a moment, maybe next year. Harbor. Dock replacement phase one, so this is not recommended area, right? This is. Like we used to have 1, 2, 3, this would be the threes,
Thank you.
go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, this, in the slide deck you'll see is the next slide is on the horizon projects. And that's for a number of different reasons, mostly there's no funding for it, for instance, Lockwood Park. The Lockwood Foundation said that if we could wait till 2027, they would entertain a donation for a structure of that kind. So it has been deferred. Now, the welcome signage should be moved up because that is still in the budget, it is recommended.
Okay,
But the rest of the projects are not cited into the budget for
Perfect.
2026.
okay, so just make that one move on that sheet, and everybody's fine then? Oh, I see it on the horizon. Okay, how's everybody doing? We dive in, water wastewater is coming in at 0, can we go ahead and get it done tonight? What?
Yeah.
I saw that.
No, I have nothing.
You have nothing? You guys okay? We've been sitting for 3 hours?
We're not
Okay.
gonna get it all done tonight.
I don't think water wastewater is.
It's easier than walking for 3 hours.
Okay. So you've got your binder as well, we'll go through here, I mean, I think at the water wastewater operating budget, and you go right to the bottom. And it's 0. Just a balanced budget. I mean, we can go through it line by line if you like, but it's coming in at 0.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, and I think there were things like continuing with the meter transition program
Sure.
and like it's all good stuff that we've talked about before that,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not suggesting we
Yeah.
don't go line by line,
Yeah.
but they've done a great job, I think, of coming in on a 0 budget.
yeah.
Okay, we can take a moment to think about it before we go on, but. Go ahead, John.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just a question on, the $50,000 for EA amendment wastewater treatment. There's a steering committee that was formed, I thought that we had closed that committee, or am I missing? Am I remembering that it was a different committee? Through you, Madam Mayor, to, Public Works.
Are you on that sheet, page 22, or are you on a
It's in the
slide?
binder, I think.
It's in the binder on page
You're on a
30.
slide.
What page?
38.
All right.
Okay, so everybody, we know where we are,
Mhm.
38, EA amendment. Where are we at?
The village is still finalizing some of the studies around that work. So the committee that was rather the technical advisory steering committee that was formed has satisfied their mandate. And so that part of it isn't required, but the project isn't stopped. The EA work still continues and still requires that work, but we have, where we are specifically to answer question from worship was the waiting for the subsurface disposal options report.
Yeah, and I think staff's gonna have an update for us within the next month or so.
Can I just ask though, is that then when you go back to the sheet we were looking at, the water wastewater operating
Yeah.
budget, you're going line by line, that's under professional consultants? Is that what that is? Where does that 50 grand show up that Councilor Aragon was speaking to?
If I may, your worship.
Yeah, please do, Tammy.
It's part of the capital, so it's
Yeah.
actually, it's part of the capital budget. So
Okay,
it
well-
actually just get transferred, it actually is all funded by user fees.
Yeah, connection fees,
Right,
okay? So it's not on this sheet, we're gonna get to it in a second.
yeah.
All right, everybody okay? On that, then we're gonna go to the capital. The 2026 water wastewater capital budget. Oh geez, improved chlorine contact time. I just need a big jar of whiteout. All right, where are we, where are we? I'm just gonna go to Peter first. Do you have a line on this?
We're waiting for quotations, so we started talking with one of our local contractors and are optimistic that we're gonna get a price for this project.
Okay, Councilor Frank.
We've been, looking at this for 6 years, I believe, you know.
Anyway,
Anyway,
Steve Saxon was the first guy on it.
yeah, the dollars we committed at the time are probably worth about 70% now of what we committed to the project. So, given the price at that time, and a delay of whatever it's been and inflation, do you think you could do this project for the amount of money left in the fund, or should we revisit that another year with a fresh number?
I suspect he's gonna say, well, let's wait, now that we have somebody who's gonna give us a quote, let's wait and get the quote. Is that about right?
Yeah, so the issue of this project remains valuable. It's not something that I think we should be just intentionally deferring, because deferring means discussion late, and it's not just 1 year behind. When we get quotes, we'll come back with the funding strategy.
Okay.
I do suspect that 65,000 is not enough to cover the whole project anymore, but we do have funding streams for water, wastewater that would be recommended at the time of the request the council to actually complete or engage the contractor for this project.
Have we got a briefing note on this? Cause my gut tells me you're gonna have to provide one like probably in November or December to the new council, cause it won't be done. So just a heads up on what's happened over the last, Barry says 6 years, I think it's before you got here, yes?
Before I got here.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that update. Track, everybody okay? Yep, truck one replacement. They're splitting the truck in half, or they're splitting cost, pre-approved, 62.5. Water meter replacement program, 8,000, pre-approved. EA water storage capacity, pre-approved for 30K, and the EA amendment wastewater treatment, pre-approved for 50K. And then we go to the sheet 25 of 26, which follows that. It shows you what impact that's gonna have and where the money's gonna be drawn from. So we've got the principal payments, the 65 from chlorine contact time. The principal payments again, truck number one replacement from reserves, and user fees paying for that part, is that what that means?
The rate fund.
Yeah, that would be user, water, sorry. Right, of course. Principal payments, water meters. So there's nothing coming out of the levy for any of that. And it's a big zero at the end. We're okay?
Yeah.
Okay, we're good? Yeah, go ahead.
I've had an IT malfunction here, but, I just have a question about the replacement vehicle.
Okay.
It was pre-approved at 77,000. What all does that include? What are we, actually, through your worship,
Yes.
Peter, what are we looking at for a vehicle?
Go ahead.
So council ordered an F-150 Lightning with a truck cap service cap.
So not the electric, I thought the Lightning was electric.
Correct. I think that was February, the
Yeah.
Broadway Council that the Lightning was discontinued,
Yeah,
so we weren't able to order one.
oh, I thought you said we just did, you said we ordered a Lightning with a cap.
F-150 period, no
Yeah,
Lightning.
no.
Okay. So when you look up the manufacturer's list price in those, an XL with a 5 liter 4-wheel drive, blah, blah, and all the things you'd like as a work truck. Manufacturer's price is $65,258. So I'm thinking there must be more involved there than just the price of the truck, is it?
Sorry,
At 77,000 set aside, and if you're gonna spend more like 66,000.
Go ahead.
Is that fair, or?
so I'm just gonna try to pull up the report from February. So the truck itself, it's the base pickup truck, 4-wheel drive as described.
Mhm.
And a truck cap with the roll-up doors for it. So yes, it's more than that, but
Okay, that was my
but
question.
the dollar, like this is based on a price already, like the truck is ordered to be here in May. So I'm apologies, Counselor, I'm confused a little bit.
So you're talking about a truck, but you're getting a truck with a cab with roll-up doors, so.
Yes,
That's not mentioned in the 77th. We have to go back to the initial, quote for the Lightning to see what the extras were on that truck, but you are still getting the cab with the roll-up doors and everything, hence the $77,000.
yes.
Okay, that's my
Yes.
question.
Anybody, anything else? Okay, I think we're at the last page here, which will likely say questions. Okay, so the recommendation we're not going to bother with tonight. So give me a sense, we've got staff coming with some reports to provide additional information. On a couple of items, few things we have taken off. Where do you want to go from here? I suspect roll the report up and tell us where we're at.
I would say, and take everything into consideration we've talked about that's coming back to council before we make basically any decisions.
Yeah.
I might ask a question here about accounting through your worship. I noticed that, for the parks truck or whatever, rec truck, we're selling it to that department and they're buying it. Would it not be a normal, municipal function to just transfer the vehicle and it's included amortization over, so it doesn't give you the perception that there's dollars involved here?
So there's, Peter, go ahead. I didn't know who was gonna put their hand up first. Peter, go ahead.
The village is mostly serviced, the ratepayers, so let's say 83% of the folks paid for the pickup truck, and it should be the other 100% the rest. So it is an accounting thing. Tim might be able to go a little bit more, but it does balance out, but the ratepayers paid for that pickup truck really, so it's effectively a transfer from the old funding, the old general fund to the old water wastewater fund.
Yeah.
You had it right when it was accounting, it is accounting thing, there's an impact to the taxes because they're in effect paying the ratepayers. So in your case, Councillor Carter, that you are both a ratepayer and a taxpayer, there's nothing out there, but in other councillors' cases, the ratepayers, the taxpayers are then paying the residual value of that.
Those guys are looking pretty smug over your shoulder right now.
It's pretty sweet.
They're looking kind of smug. Go ahead, Councillor Crapper.
I would like to suggest that as staff take this back, they look towards potential to get closer to 5% than 8%. And may or may not be possible, but I think it's worthwhile having having that on the table to discuss. Like, what are we hoping for? Is there do others share that view?
Okay, go ahead. Councillor Ronan and then Councillor Carter.
I think based on the way that I've been tracking what we've been talking about, I think that's entirely possible. So I'd like to see staff come back with something around that 5% would make a lot more sense.
Okay.
Yeah, 5% was kind of the goal I had in my mind in light of the fact that we've seen increased revenue from the levy at Watercolor. Plus, we've upped our spending, so I don't think we should demonstrate a need to spend our good fortune all in one year. I mean, let's slap some of the bank, as Councillor Cracker said, let's look down the road a piece here and be prepared for what may or may not happen. Like any insurance, you're best served if you never have to use it, so I think that's a good plan, but 5% to my way of thinking, based on a 2.2% cost of living increase, I think that should be fair to everybody and demonstrate that staff and council are doing everything they can to keep the cost down. When you say that, I forget what $23.47 a month, well, that's a good way to sell the program, but if you say $281.64 a year on your tax bill, that sounds a little bit different, so. Let's shoot for something reasonable.
Amy, you feel 5% is where they should be shooting?
Yeah, looking at different municipalities around us, they're in the 4.84, 5.29. So I think if we can aim for 5% too, I'd agree with that.
Okay, so that's for staff. Anybody, anything else? That was one of our longer meetings, but always the first budget meeting is a challenging one. Staff, thank you very much. I know that you've put in more hours than you even want to think about. getting us to where we are today. Tammy, thank you very much for all your support, advice and calculations. Very much appreciated. And so are we coming back in, what is the date that we're gonna come back? How much time does staff need to bring us back? The next report. We've got committee of the whole, but is that next week?
Yeah, it's next
Oh, it's
Tuesday.
too soon.
So that's unless council wants to move committee of the whole, which is the 5th to the 12th, and then we can hold those together. Otherwise, we could proceed with committee of the whole next Tuesday and hold another special budget meeting on the 12th. So
I'm in,
yeah, here.
Timmins, yeah, I'm away. I'm in Timmins on the 12th.
Okay,
I think we should do it as soon as staff are prepared, maybe in a bit as we have to pick.
Well, the 19th is council meeting, they're normally light. Are you around? On the 19th?
yeah, that'll work for me.
It's a Tuesday after the long weekend. I mean, we're late in the year anyway, but I'm feeling optimistic we'll land it on that day.
Can I just, if council will, give us the time to figure out whether we can bring back a briefing note to next Tuesday's committee of the whole meeting?
That'd be awesome.
I think just based on some of Tammy's very, very high level calculations she's just done, we're already around 5.2. So if we can put that in briefing note, for committee of the whole next week, I think we'd rather get it back on the table for Tuesday.
Perfect. Yeah. It's up to you. It's really your call.
Sure, thanks, Tammy.
Okay, thanks, Shannon. Go ahead.
Through your worship, I may or may not be right, but have we published our audited 2025 budget?
Go ahead.
Sorry, budget or?
Audited.
Budget.
Audited financial statements? Yeah.
Okay, they're published, so we
Yeah.
can pass this budget when we're ready then, okay.
Mhm.
Sorry, 2025 audited financial
No,
statements?
no, 24.
So it's my understanding that we have to publish that before we can finalize this budget, is that not correct?
Tammy's going no.
No.
Okay.
Thanks, Tammy. All in a gesture. No. Anybody, anything else for the good? So thank you to staff. Thank you to Tammy. Thank you. You guys are an incredible council. I say this every chance I get, that we don't always agree, but we always walk out friends, and we start the meeting with some laughter and we end the meeting with some laughter. So well done. Thank you, everybody. And I've got an adjournment here somewhere, but I've got all my papers messed up. Hang on. I found it. There we go. Moved by Councillor Aragona, seconded by Councillor Cardy, that the special budget meeting council be adjourned at 7:28 PM. All in favor? And we're adjourned. I'm done. Bye, Tammy. Thank you again.